In this chaotic fashion industry, I must tell you before I start, because I wrote the introduction for our two guests. The company is Badgley Mischka, but Mark Badgley is now in Hong Kong. So when I say they, I really am referring to James. It's James Mischka and Mark Badgley. So when I say they, you must consider it singular. And I did say our guests today in this chaotic fashion industry are a rare breed, and everything I'm saying about them is still accurate. Mark Badgley and James Mischka are young. Both are the same age. They're 33 years old, and both are sure of their design philosophy, and they have a very strong sense of business. James and Mark met while they were students at Parsons School of Design. They started their business together in 1988. They were recognized quickly. In 1989, after 1 year, they got the Mouton Cadet New Designer Award. In 1992, the Dallas Apparel Mart gave them the Rising Star Award. Their business judgment kept pace, and they knew that it was time to seek financial support. The very important fashion powerhouse in Germany, Escada, needed no convincing. They joined forces with this terrific team, and their financial backing makes expansion of the firm a reality. Their global business is inevitable. Already, Badgley Mischka has a secondary collection. It's called Badgley Mischka Dress. The lower price points make it more accessible, and the customer base has widened. The customers have enlarged and grown. The secondary line is now placed in more than they've not grown in their width and their size, not individually. There are just more of them. The secondary line is now placed in more than 300 stores across the country. The couture collection, of course, is also placed in the finest stores in New York, in the country, rather. Stores like Bergdorf Goodman in New York, Neiman Marcus, I. Magnin, and Saks Fifth Avenue. I don't know that I ever mentioned this, but I think it's interesting to tell you that 2 years ago, I went to Bergdorf to speak to the CEO chairman, who was then Bert Tansky. He's now the same CEO post at Neiman Marcus, but then he had been at Bergdorf. And I wanted to talk to him about a young designer exhibition, a thought about that. And he instantly said to me, if you do anything like that, at the top of the heap, you must have Badgley Mischka, he said. He said this word for word, he said, they're phenomenal. We do terrific with them. So I think it's nice for you to hear it now and for us to know it. And of course, for us to now welcome you and tell you how happy we are that you've come to talk to us. There we go.
Well, thank you very much. I was going to give you a little history of what we did, but I think that's already been done. So I think maybe what I would like to talk to you guys about is, first of all, explain a little bit who we are, because not everybody knows, and then after that, maybe detail with you how we started our company, because I know that one of your projects is to write a proposal for starting a business. Maybe I can tell you how we did ours. Can you hear? Okay. So like Rose said, we started the company in 1988. We began with family money, but we didn't really start out to do that. We started out to find an investor in the company at the time. So we prepared a business plan that sort of detailed what we thought our company would be about and where we would take it. We started out doing just cocktail and evening clothes, which is an area that we felt really strong about because Mark and I had a lot of friends who didn't have anything to wear when they went out to nightclubs and things like that. They would like go to Bergdorf's and buy a Jeffrey Bean and return it the next day, or wear vintage clothes or something like that. So we wanted to find something that was more affordable than an American couture designer, and also not just a vintage dress. So, and Mark had a twin sister, or has a twin sister still, who was a bit of an inspiration for us. She was actually our fitting model when we started the company. She's now in California, but she still works for us. She's our retail coordinator, going to stores, making sure that everything looks good in the stores. So we started the company, set out to start off with evening wear. And really, when you start off a company like this, you have to really determine what you're going to do. You have to really pick a specific area that you want to concentrate on. It doesn't really work for someone to just decide they want to be a designer and make clothes and sell them to stores. You have to be a little more specific than that, or no one's going to give you any money at all. So we identified evening wear as a niche that we were particularly interested in, something we thought we had a feeling for, and we also figured that no one needed another American sportswear designer. There's already plenty of those, and there's no more room in the stores for any more, really, which is contrary to what some people might have believed at the time with all the young designers that started out back then. But we found that by focusing on a specialty area, it was very good for our business, because it allowed us to really focus on what we were doing instead of trying to be all over the place. And then when we spoke to the stores about it later on, they said that that was actually the best thing we could have done, because, like, for example, Bergdorf Goodman would never have put us on the sportswear floor because there's not enough room there. The reality of the real estate in the stores is such that you can't really fit one more person on that floor. So good thing we were in the evening, because you can pack a couple little dresses on the floor a lot easier than you can a whole sportswear collection. So in detailing our business plan, we identified our product base. We identified, therefore, about 100 stores in the country we felt could handle the product itself. Put together an estimated account base based on that. Not everyone's who you identify is going to identify you as someone they want to have in their store. Figure out an estimated volume per year based upon a certain number of dresses in the store, what's going to make a presentation, what the store can support, what you want to have in the store. Then it's a simple thing of multiplication, where you multiply, 10 dresses times 40 stores times $500 a piece is whatever it is, and that's your volume for the season. We also identified, certain stores, major stores, that can handle more than just one door. For example, Saks Fifth Avenue, you can be in 10 doors, you can be in 24 stores, or you can be in just one store. We at the time felt we would be good for 10 of their stores, and they've since, increased us from there. So that's how you put the nuts and bolts together. Then we came up with an expense base that worked for our collection. We identified how many pattern makers, how many sewers. We started off with it was really just Mark and I starting the company, and then we had freelance sewers come in to start making the samples. We worked out of a loft on 37th Street and 10th Avenue. We figured out, our rent and our utilities and our phone and everything. And then really from there, based the growth of the collection, or based the expense base on the growth of the collection. If we figured we'd do a volume of a certain amount one year, we figured we can do this much staff to support it, and then we have to make sure that each person on staff can achieve what they have to achieve. If you have 6 sewers and you have to make 80 samples, then you have to make 15 samples a sewer, and if you have only so many weeks, you have to figure out how that works. We do evening clothes. Our clothes are very time-consuming. You can do a lot more sportswear than you can do evening clothes in terms of volume of samples for number of sample makers. We identified what we need in terms of sample fabric, because you can't make the clothes without the fabric, of course. You have to figure a certain amount of wastage. You figure you'll use maybe a quarter of your fabric in actually making samples, is the rule of thumb that we used. So if you wanted to make 100 samples, and each sample would cost an average of $200 of fabric, you need to have $20,000, $80,000 worth of fabric that you have to put into your budget, and then you figure you're wasting $60,000 of that. We also had fitting models. Like I said, Mark's sister was our original fitting model, and she was luckily very inexpensive. But if she wasn't as reliable as she could have been, because she was also an actress and she had to work at her real job to make some real money. So you figure a fitting model. A lot of companies hire a receptionist/fitting model. We felt it didn't really work for us because, first of all, we didn't have a receptionist, and secondly, They're not usually the size that you want to have for the runway girls, because we did start our first collection with a runway show, which was also budgeted in the collection. We budgeted the first show at, I think, $20,000, and they're a lot more expensive now, I must say. But you can, when you're starting up, you can get away with a lot more than you can get away with when you're more established. You can get away with paying the models, $300 a piece plus a dress. You can get away with using a less expensive space. You can get away with, paying the music guy a nominal amount, having a friend do the music, other methods of cutting costs like that you can't do once you're playing at a certain level, I guess you'd say. So that's how we started our company off with those plans. Those are really the primary areas that we identified as expenses. It's staff, it's space, it's fabric, it's fitting model, and then promotion, which for us was the show. A lot of people do like a mailing, advertising, which was way beyond our capability at the time. And we just planned the company out for 2 years based upon, a growth pattern, and that's what we did. It was about 10 pages, lots of graphs and charts. We had a computer, luckily. And so that's how, we started our company.
Your own money.
It was our own money eventually. We were originally planning to go to outside investors, and then our families said, well, it's not that much money, so we can support you in that. I'm still paying them back to this day, but we were very fortunate in that situation, because that's not a usual situation. Most people don't have families that could support that, but ours didn't either give it to us either. It was a loan, so.
Yes.
Yeah, in terms of our background, the reason we were able to maybe be successful as successful as we are, is that both Mark and I went to real school before we went to fashion school. We both went to Parsons. We did not go to FIT, I must admit that right now. But we both also went to real school. Mark went to USC and studied marketing, and I went to Rice University in Texas and studied biomedical engineering, which is a bit of a change from what I'm doing now. I was originally going to design artificial limbs, and part of the reason for that was that when I was in high school, I took art class and did all that. I wanted to be an architect or something along those lines. And then family said, no, I don't think so. There was no money in architecture. Only the top 2% get jobs, that whole kind of thing, which I'm sure a lot of you went through as well when you wanted to go to FIT. Luckily, you beat down any people who are saying no, and you're here now. So I went to school down in Texas to do biomedical engineering, which there was a ton of money in, and took the mercenary route for a while. Then came up to New York to go to school for a semester at Parsons for fashion design, just to be in New York, and ended up liking it and staying. So that's how I got into this. Mark was much more of a planned out thing. He planned to go to school for marketing first and then go to design school, with the eventual hope of starting his own business. So like Ms. Simon said, we met at Parsons. We both were in the same class. We weren't in the same class until senior year, which is, we got to be good friends senior year. And then after graduation, Mark worked for actually right after graduation, he worked for Jackie Rogers, and I worked for Willie. We're doing their men's collection. And after 2 years of that, Mark went to Donna Karan, and I did Yves Saint Laurent's menswear for about a year, and then did freelance. And then we both decided that we were fed up working for other people, because we were working. Mark was working till like 3 in the morning. I was working all day long, 7 days a week, freelancing. We figured that you can't work any harder for anybody else than you. We didn't think we could work any harder than we were working for other people already. So we figured, why not start our own company? And we decided to do it in combination instead of going into competition against each other, because we felt that would be the nice thing to do. And we also started off doing men's and women's both, which was part of our business plan also. We had originally planned that we could get like twice the work out of the room, because you're in market at different times for menswear. It's a different calendar entirely. What we found out instead was that instead of being a helpful thing, it was very difficult, because we were in market 12 months a year. We were making samples 12 months a year. We never had any downtime on any part of the collection to take care of the rest of it. So we the women's collection started taking off. We won that Mouton Cadet award, which helped, and we dropped the men's collection as a result, even though it was probably twice the size of the women's collection at the time, because it was doing very well in Japan. What else can I tell you?
We decided to do an evening wear, an evening clothes. specific.
Right, because we felt there was a void in the market for evening clothes. Something that was not, $4,000, although now sometimes they are, but originally not $4,000 for a dress. We started off being about $1,000 in the store for the most part. And then, like I said, we didn't want to do sportswear because we figured there were already a lot of sportswear designers out there. It was easier for us to specialize on something that we could become known as like the hopefully top part of this niche of the market. I think it's very important to identify a niche in your market, or else you're going to be just all over the place going after every customer. And if you're starting out by yourself, especially, it's really impossible to do that. If you're part of a large company, someone else can do it for you. But if you're doing it yourself, you really have to specialize and be focused on what you're doing.
Perhaps we can see your collection.
Yeah, this is going to be our spring collection, which we showed, I guess it's almost a month ago now. It was our first season in the tents at Bryant Park. We're usually in the library, but this season we're in the tents. And basically the collection was based on, California and Hollywood. So you can see the video. These buttons don't work.
Good. At this point, I must interrupt to say to the students, please do not leave at the end of our lecture, because I must tell you about our next week's place that we're going. It is not here, so nobody leave, please.
Captain.
Great joy I see now.
We'll turn around to see.
Fabulous you must feel. What happens you cannot imagine. Joy is free.
So you got to see Mark after all, I guess, at the very end.
Beautiful collection.
So,
It seems to me the tailoring is such a challenge in the fabrics that you would use. The shiny fabrics to show such perfect construction is really a challenge. It really is a
it
show
was
of
taking a risk.
skill in tailoring.
It was definitely taking a risk.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So, who has questions?
Did you find that the marketing background and knowing how to write a traditional business plan really made a difference over starting a business?
We didn't end up making or breaking our business in the beginning because we didn't really need it because we didn't present it to outside financiers. But what it does is it makes you really think through what you're doing. And we really kept close to our business plan. But it really made you, instead of just like, oh, we're going to sell, some stores. It's like, I'm going to sell 25 stores. And it allows you to really chart yourself and see if you're on the road to the success that you hopefully are planning when you start the company.
Did you do like cash flow charts and everything?
We did cash flow, we did profit and loss, we did the whole kit and caboodle. There was a couple books on business plans that we had gotten that helped us out with like the organization of them and everything. And also, having a marketing background was tremendously helpful, and a computer to run the models on. Yes.
How important is the run ratio to your business? A lot of sportswear companies, they don't really need it anymore.
To us, it's very important because ours is such an image business. Like a lot of volume, mass price manufacturers may not need it, but if you're doing, our clothes are a lot about dreams and a lot about being very special, so it's really important for that. And also the press it generates is very important for us as well. That's what allowed us to do our secondary collection, our dress division, was that our name is, it's not totally a household word, but it's well known enough that it helped to launch a second division.
How did you manage to get a Scada?
Oh, that was quite something. It was in 1991, towards the end of the year, around this time actually, that when you're a small company, you're financing yourself, what can be the most difficult thing of all is the cash flow, because your stores, you're paying for your fabric up front because you don't have a huge credit line with a bank, and then you're paying your factories up front, and then you're shipping your goods to the stores, and your stores don't pay you for 2 months afterwards, and sometimes longer in the case of certain stores, which I shall not name. Saks actually has been very good to us. They always pay us right on time.
Farms?
I said I wouldn't mention any names. But actually, what's very nice is that a lot of the stores will really help you out if it's necessary. Like, we had a lot of our stores, our big stores, prepay us, which is almost unheard of from what I understand, but they paid us in advance of the season. Like, when they placed their order, they placed half down on their order to allow us to buy the fabric, to manufacture the clothes, to make it so they could have it in their stores and hopefully sell them. That only happens if you're selling in the stores. If you're not selling, then they're not too likely to do it. But they recognize the fact that we were a young company, a little company, struggling company. Cash flow problem is everybody's biggest problem when you're starting out. So the stores don't pay you for months afterwards. So we realized that to enable us to grow any further, we needed more money, because we needed to lay out for fabrics 6 months before we get paid for them. And the only way to do that is to have a bigger finance base. And so we started talking to some of our stores, Neiman Marcus in particular, and they said, well, let us talk to some people for you. And so they hooked us up with a Scada right before Thanksgiving. We had a couple conversations. Margareta and I came over and surprised us one day in the showroom. We were not ready for her. So it was not the cleanest showroom in the world, because we were just getting ready for a new season. She came up, she liked what she saw, I guess, and she said, gave them the go-ahead. And so we talked to the money guys. We had our lawyers talk to their lawyers and got a deal together. And it happened in about 3 weeks, the whole thing. Yes. About Todd designing for Scada, I think it's great because we knew they were looking for a designer, and everyone's like, well, Todd Olin has nothing to do with Scada, but he actually does, because he's all about color and pattern and shape, and they're trying to make the collection more fun. So I think it's a very interesting choice that they made. I think it's going to work out great. And also, I think Todd's about the nicest person on 7th Avenue, so I'm glad for him. Yes.
You said you started in evening wear. What do you think developed from it, or what did develop from it? I was seeing the models coming down with these adorable little purse,
The
handbags.
sweater sets.
Did you go straight into accessories, or was it, like...
Those actually aren't our accessories, the purses. We didn't do those. We worked with a designer on them. Whose name I can't remember now, but we worked with the designer on the accessories. The shoes are by Manolo Blahnik. We are developing our own shoe licensee eventually. That's really the next step for us is, again, focusing on evening and doing an evening shoe collection.
Shoes do very well, I imagine. Calvin Klein is doing shoes.
Yeah, shoes. I mean, you have to wear shoes to go with your dresses, so
exactly.
they do well.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're continually told not to go into business with friends. I was just wondering how that has, if you had second thoughts about it and how that's worked out for you. It seems to be pretty.
Well, we're both still alive. We haven't killed each other yet. You always hear that, but then we were in a situation where we are very much of the same mindset. It's been said that it's having one mind and two bodies, which is not the most flattering description, probably. But maybe the same mind and two bodies is a little bit better. But in the beginning, we were both doing everything together. We were in every single fabric appointment, every single fitting, every single everything. And we've since developed a level of comfort where I, like, for example, now Mark can be in Hong Kong sourcing fabrics for fall, and I can be overseeing the rest of the sales season for the season that you just saw on the runway. So, it's worked out very well for us because it really lets you be in two places at once. I know a lot of designers who don't have the control over their business that they'd like to have because they have to concentrate too much on just the one thing, which is really the design of it, which is, of course, the paramount thing. Yes?
In evening wear, how many seasons do you do a year?
We do 3 seasons now. We're actually 3 or 4 depending on who you speak to. We do spring, which you just saw. We do fall. We do a resort and holiday combination. And we really don't do a resort collection. We really do a pre-spring collection because our clothes don't really relate well to resort thinking. And then we also have our dress division, which has, I think, 6 seasons a year. So
That would be
that's our diffusion collection, basically.
Do you sell the black jet beads in the spring much?
We sell black all year long. I mean, black is just a thing we always do.
A group of black, that's wonderful. Not navy. I mean,
No, it's definitely black. A lot of times, though, we do a navy that's almost black that people think is black, but it's we know it's navy. For a change.
Clothes that they can be all year round, obviously.
That's something that we kind of count on doing is clothes that are kind of classic but not too classic because you don't need the same old thing again. There's no reason for it.
Yes. There is a casualness in some of the evening pieces which makes it so right for the customer who still likes the sportswear message. And that satin pants and the bra and the cashmere sweater over
Right.
it.
Those are actually sold as separate pieces, and then we put them together that way on the runway, and whereas other pieces are sold as a suit or as a dress. So,
I think they're wonderful.
thank you.
Very pretty. And the colors too, those pastels are beautiful.
Yeah, each one was a unique situation. Some of them were hand-dyed by people in our showroom. They were in ivory. We had a group of ivory dresses, and we said, this looks really bridal, looks really boring. So one of our people, Larissa, one of our assistants, is like the dyeing queen of our company, and she went and she said, what color should this one be? We're like, make that one mauve, make that one lilac, make that one peach. And she dyed 7 of those dresses by hand, and they were like sitting in our showroom drying one day. It was quite a mess. Yes.
Do you run all the sales? I mean, you run everything of your company. You don't have a division now that's developing a sales on its own.
We had that. One of the advantages of being with Escada was that we were able to hire more staff, obviously, and build a bigger base for the company. then we decided to eliminate that one level of management because we found that we were getting too far away from our stores, that we weren't getting the feedback that we wanted to have from the stores. It was kind of filtered through too many people's interpretations, and it's really crucially important that you know who your customer is and what they're looking for and what they want, and we were getting information that wasn't quite what was really the truth, so we decided to get rid of a level of management and take it upon ourselves again, which has worked out very well for us. So I think it's important to always keep in mind that you don't want to get too far away from your customer, whether the customer is the store or the customer is the actual person in the store.
What is the price range?
For an outfit, we're anywhere from $800 to $5,000. The bulk of it's around $1,000 in the store, and that's the couture collection. And the dress is about $250 to $400 to $500 in the store. So dress is considerably less expensive.
Yes. Where do you do the embroidery?
It's in France, New York, and India.
You do in New York too?
Yeah, we develop samples in New York, but something that will cost you $3,000 for a sample in New York will cost you $50 to make in India. So you don't do a lot of production in New York, obviously. Yes.
There are certain silhouettes that you found just don't work in evening wear that just follow.
Let's see. Well, tight dresses are always good. A-line dresses are always good. Pants work very well for us. I think that we've never done a silhouette that's really bombed in evening. Some of the bras can be a little bit difficult sometimes because they're very specific in terms of the fit.
And do you find the bustier look, do you think that's going to really stay strong?
I think for evening it may be. I don't think for daytime it's going to be very important. I know a lot of people showed it for daytime, but I don't think people really want to get into that kind of gear for daytime, basically. Unless it's like the real gear, in which case it makes sense.
What is the best-selling piece in the collection right after you finished showing?
On this
Begin to take your orders.
On this collection, probably the best-selling piece was the one gown that was all striped, was penny velvet with chiffon with beaded lace, which each piece is inset by hand, and it takes 2 weeks for one person to make that dress. And it's probably our #1 seller, and it's also the highest priced piece on the collection. So, go figure, right? You never know what's going to be the hot seller. Thanks.
And do you discard many pieces?
So usually what you show on the runway is not anywhere near what you have in the showroom. Usually it's an entirely different collection for the showroom. But this season we showed what we really felt strongly about and didn't really have any, there's like 1 or 2 discards on that collection. And it's basically the most boring pieces that we discarded. Exciting pieces are what we kept in. Yes.
The collection is extremely body conscious. Now, I don't really know your customer record to like really ask this question, but I'd be curious in which sizes you sell actually the collection. Or what are your range?
We do 2 through 14 on collection. We do 2 through 16 on the dress collection. Like you said, the customers are getting bigger. They actually are larger for the dress division, and physically larger. Well, I figure a lot, outside of New York especially, a lot of people who have money are not the tiniest people. So. But we also, in addition to what you see on the runway here, we do like a variety of chemise shapes and a couple of swing shapes as well, which can address a larger customer. Which, because my mom can't buy these clothes, and she would like to buy some of our clothes, so we have to do something to make her happy. And Mark's mom too.
It's a very interesting business, the large size business, and very profitable, isn't it?
I think it is for a lot of people. I know that Saks Fifth Avenue with their Salon Z is extremely successful, but we don't go above 16 yet for our collection. But it's always a possibility.
Yes. More questions? Yes. I always have more questions.
You can keep me going.
I'd like to know, when you prepare for your next fall collection, when do you start with that? I know Mark is now buying fabric.
Well, he's buying fabric for the dress collection, which is not what's on the runway at all. It's an entirely different collection. We start with our fabrics when we go to Premier Vision, which was in late September this year. So we started about a month and a half ago.
And then how many people are there in your work room, in the design room?
We have, between the 2 divisions, we have 4 assistants. We have about maybe 35 sewers and pattern makers in the back.
Work room.
Yeah, we're 56 people total in the company. So it's a lot of groceries.
Our showroom, too, is large. It's a large place of business.
No, we're very happy with our showroom. It's
Beautiful.
spacious.
Yes.
It wasn't always when we started out, though. We started off, like I said, in a loft, well, maybe I didn't say, in a loft building on 37th Street and 10th Avenue, where the buyers, first of all, we started out when we had this fashion show. We had it downtown on, Broadway and Houston Street. It was right after Ron Shamash's show, so everyone came right over from the Puck Building to ours. It was packed out. Clothes got a good response, but then the next day we'd go back to the office and we're like, well, where's all the buyers? We hadn't realized you have to call them to get them to come see you, but they don't just show up after a good show. So then we started calling them up and they started coming, but then they would come and they come over from 7th Avenue, which you have to realize that all of the garment district is on 7th Avenue, basically. There's a couple down in Soho now, but basically the buyers don't want to go anywhere besides 7th Avenue. So we were over on 10th Avenue. So they're coming over and they're calling up from like 8th Avenue. How much further are you? I call up from 9th Avenue. How much further are you? And we're just a little further. I go, I can see New Jersey from here, What am I doing? So eventually they get there and they find it. And then what we found was that buyers who would the first season come in like a mini skirt and high heels, next season it's pants and a trench coat because the neighborhood was not what it might be, or was what it might be actually. So that was an interesting way to start the business. Yes.
How much capital did you figure out in your business plan when you start your company?
We had planned it at $250,000. We did it with less than that. But people have any variety of things that they say that you need. It depends on how you finance yourself. You can finance through accounts receivable financing, that kind of thing, where you have like a factor who advances you money upon shipping the goods, which we did for a time with Hilden Corporation, which is an AR financing company, which eases your cash flow somewhat, but then they don't always take all your stores either, so you have to decide, do you take the risk yourself and ship the store if they're not going to pay you for it, or do you just not sell the store and not have the volume?
For what it's worth, a little history. You know Galanos. Do you know the company Galanos? He started with $200, and it was a loan from a designer named Jean-Louis in Hollywood, who also made beautiful clothes. But $200 put him into business.
Well, $200 went a lot further back then than it does these days, too. So.
It is a strange amount needed today, though. I mean, for young people who really don't have too much money.
We were told not to go into this with less than $1 million. That was like the rule of thumb, basically, for an apparel company. We didn't listen, so luckily it's worked out. Yes.
Evening wear is seems like such a narrow market, especially compared to sportswear. What kind of volume do you do?
We do about $8 million a year on collection and about the same on dress.
And about how many pieces does that have to for a store? How many do you expect them to buy?
It really depends on each store because our stores range from little teeny tiny mom and pop stores to Saks Fifth Avenue, Neiman Marcus. Unfortunately, no longer iMagnums. So I mean, any store can buy anywhere from 10 pieces to 1,000 pieces, basically.
What's your minimum?
10 pieces. And on our dress division, we don't have a minimum. It has to be a representation based on how many stores in a city have the collection. Like if you're in 6 stores in a small city, you don't need each one to have 24 pieces. You can have each one have 4 pieces, and you're still represented in the city.
Do stores ask you to do exclusives for them?
All the time.
I'm sure. And do you say yes?
Depends on who the store is and how many of the exclusive they want to buy.
Does Saks take your merchandise into most of its 41 stores?
No, we're only in maybe 15 Saks stores right now.
That's a lot too. That's a big one.
Well, I mean, they only have so many stores that can support our price point. And our dress division is in many more than that.
What do you say to no? How do you say no to exclusives? The use of exclusive. Would you tell the students why stores like that so much?
Well, every store thinks it's unique. They all think that they are the best store in the world, and of course they all are. And they don't want to have the same merchandise that their competitors have, because very often in a city you'll have a Saks and a Neiman's. They're in basically the big cities. So there's a Saks and a Neiman's, and maybe a Rich's or a Nordstrom or somebody else in the same city, as well as specialty stores. So every store wants to have a unique presentation of merchandise. So they ask you to do exclusives for them, either exclusive color or exclusive entire style, and it really depends upon, you know, your manufacturing capabilities if you can do it or not. We have a situation with Bergdorf's where they get our entire collection whether we make it or not, and then because they have exclusive on the floor which they may buy only 3 of, but it's a way to allow us to experiment with what we do so we don't have to just throw away our discards. Not that we throw clothes away, but that's a problem when they're $4,000.
That's a nice object.
So yeah, Mr. Blast does the same thing. They suggested it to us, and we said, sounds good to us.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
How large was your collection when you first started out? How large?
Our first show was 26 pieces, men's and women's combined.
And what about now?
The runway show you just saw was 67 pieces. There's probably 100 looks in the showroom total. And that's a look, an entire outfit, not just like a skirt or something. It's an entire ensemble.
It's interesting that John Galliano also did his collection of 25 pieces, and it was raved about.
Mm-hmm.
And you had 26, so that's...
Our first season, we had more this season.
Yes, yes.
But we had Naomi Campbell in our first show before anybody knew who she was. She was just a young girl back then. Nobody knew her. They know her now. Yes. We sold 3 styles. We sold 4 of each to Henry Bendel's. So that was our first. That's why you have to call the buyers before the season opens, or else they don't come in. And you have to. It also helps a lot to have somebody make an introduction for you. Our first season, nobody knew who we were. We could be, 2 toads on a log, and they wouldn't. They don't know who Badgley Mischka is. They're like, who's that Russian lady, Badgley Mischka, calling? So what happened with us was that we had the magazines always come to see new things because they're always trying to find the newest and the hopefully the most creative things. So they all came and they started talking about the clothes, which then in turn led some of the store buyers to come a month after the season was open when they couldn't buy anything else because they commit all their dollars. But then they got us ready for the next season, so they saved money for us for the next season. And that was really the start of our business, was the fall of '89 season. We produce the couture collection all in New York, and the dress division is produced in New York and Hong Kong. Yes.
Yes.
How difficult is it to get yourself established when you just started?
I can think of nothing more difficult. It's really, really difficult. You think that, you go into this and you say, I know all about hard work. I worked really hard before. I've never had to work as hard as I had to work at school or when I was working for another designer. But then you find that it's 10 times what you would ever imagine it could possibly be. Not to discourage anybody, but if you love what you do, then you'll go through it. But if you don't, then you should work for somebody else for a while longer.
So what made the breakthrough for you?
For us, I think it was a combination of being in, like I said, Fall '89 was our first real season. We were in Bergdorf's, Barney's, Magnon's, and a bunch of specialty stores, and then that was for the fall. So in November, when the stores came in for their market, they all go to Barney's and Bergdorf's to see what they have on the floor, to see what's new and what's exciting, because they know those stores will have the hottest merchandise. So all of a sudden, there's all these people in Bergdorf's scribbling down this name, Badgley Mischka, trying to remember how to spell it, trying to look it up in the phone book, which wasn't listed, which is another mistake we made. It was listed as a residence instead of a business, so don't make that mistake. And then we also won the Mouton Cadet Award at the exact same moment. So, and there was also stories that came out in Vogue and Harper's about us the same month. So kind of November of '89 was a big jumping point for us. All of the things happening at the same time, being in the stores, Mouton Cadet, and the Vogue and Harper's things.
Do the Escada people get into the act and tell you anything about how to operate?
They only tell us don't ship Magnons yet because they're going to go out of business and things like that. They don't really have anything to do with design, product, or anything at all, because we're part of Escada USA, whereas Escada Germany is where all the product comes from, all the merchandise. They don't manufacture here, they don't design here, they don't do anything here, which is why Todd's going over to Germany 8 times a year. So really they're just a distribution arm, and we use their distribution facilities, but all the product and everything has nothing to do with them at all. Yeah, well, it's a very fortunate relationship.
Because when we had Christian Francis Roth here, he had a very large backer, but they were so intrusive that it really didn't work out too well.
Yeah, that's I think the hardest thing when you're hooking up with another company is that it has to be someone who's going to leave you alone to do what you want to do, unless you don't want to do what you want to do, in which case it's okay to work for them anyway.
Yes.
So,
Where do you sell? Do you sell
Pardon?
only in the U.S. or?
we sell the U.S., Germany, Switzerland, France, Tel Aviv, Kuwait, Hong Kong, and Tokyo.
That's terrific. I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was projected. I didn't know it was all
No, and also Canada, Mexico, quite a bit.
It's really 6 years, isn't it?
6 years.
It's really pretty terrific.
Well, we figure after we got off over the first 3 years, we'd be fine.
Well, for our plan then, we've been pretty well encouraged. Is there something you can tell us that we haven't already heard for this hypothetical plan that we're going to do for our term paper? Most students, should they go into their own business or should they not do it quickly? Should they first get employment?
I think the best thing to do is to learn working for somebody else for a couple of years first, because even after working for several years for other people, we thought we knew how to do all these things in the company, and we had no idea. And we found out later, we had no idea how to sell clothes. We had no idea how to actually do a fashion show, even though we had done them with other designers before. We really had no idea how to do a lot of things, which we learned quickly. Being production manager, I'd never done before, so I had to do it really fast.
Yes.
And I would say the most valuable thing you can do is to work for another designer for several years until you really get your grounding and really know as much as you can about all parts of their business. Like when I was in design at Woolly, where I also was in the sales office all the time, I was in the production office all the time, and I was all over the company. And Mark was the same way at Donna Karan, so it really provides a lot of information. It's very valuable.
I imagine you're hoping for licenses, are you?
We're talking to some now,
Yes.
so.
That's like the dream, the cherry on the cake, is it?
Yeah, people have already approached us about perfume and things like that, but I think it's a little premature for that for us. We don't want to do anything where we're going to be flashing the pan in any way.
Yeah.
So.
You're obviously too businesslike to jump into anything that isn't sound, which I think is an awfully good experiment to do to us, so that we follow that kind of thinking. I mean, not to just be too impulsive.
I mean, it's important to go and do what you believe in, get things that you think will get you pressed, things that are like I said, what you believe in. But at the same time, if you're not careful business-wise, you won't be around to do those things again. So
The deliveries is almost as important as the collection, I imagine.
it is very important.
Keeping you in business.
It's very important. And also, once you sell clothes to the store, you have to sell them again to the customer in the store, which means a lot of hand-holding with the stores, a lot of visits from our staff to the stores, all that kind of thing.
You know, when we had Bernadine Morris here, we wanted to know how students, when they are in their own business, could get press, and she made her explanation. How did you go about getting press when you were starting?
We called every person we could possibly think of calling and tried to get them over. We also had a friend who had a PR company who we utilized in the beginning for free, because when you're small and interested, you can do things for free.
Do you have a public relations firm now?
We do. We go with Kiba Kavako and Duca.
Oh, yes, I realize, yeah. Well, we do have time for a couple of more questions, if you have them.
I was curious about the small part of knitwear in your collection. How do you go about that? Do you have a knitwear designer, or is it?
No, we really just do that ourselves. We produce the samples here domestically in a sample room in New York, and then we produce them over in Hong Kong. Knitwear is it's an entirely different thing from woven clothes. It's an absolutely different animal. To do a more extensive program, we'd probably have to have a knitwear designer, or at least a freelance knitwear designer, which most companies do have, especially sportswear companies. But knitwear as part of what we do really for Cocktail and Evening is not as important in terms of an actual sweater knit. Cut and sew knits such as wool jersey and mat jersey are very important for us, but actual sweaters and such are not that important. We do them more for the show than for the stores.
Oh, okay. I was thinking what the twin sets.
Yeah, those actually we do produce. Well, everything you out of that knitwear in the show, about half of it was cashmere and half of it was a Lorex yarn. So we're producing the Lorexes but not the cashmeres because we can't compete price-wise with, like, say, cashmere and those kind of companies.
But you coordinate those colors with your satin, so
Right, and then for production we did them in Lurex instead of in cashmere,
I see. I see.
so in the same colors.
It's a lovely look. It's beautiful. Any more questions?
Yes.
When you get to the point of sale where the buyer finally makes it to your showroom and says for the first time, all right, I'm going to try you out, give me 25 this style and 25 that style, what do they expect you to do from that point on? And what do you have to do as far as finance and letters of credit and things that we don't know about right now? Because up to this point, we know how to make the dress. But when somebody actually places that first order, I don't know what to do.
Well, that was a situation we found ourselves in as well. We've got our first, but we luckily had a very small first season, so we got our feet wet just in a little way, and then we learned what we had. We immediately called everyone we knew who was in a production department at any company and said, what do I do now? The first thing to do is you have to purchase the fabric, of course, which that's usually what takes you the longest lead time. Opening up letters of credit is very difficult to do if you're a small company because it really requires a lot of banking work. You're usually better off just prepaying the fabric if you're a small company. Then you have to go through the whole thing where you make, not only do you make your original sample, which is what you know how to do right now, then you make a production sample as well, which is ordinarily a size, runway samples are not size 8s, they're very small and very long. So then you have to make a size 8, which is a normal person, which you fit on a production fitting model, which is a normal size person. Then you correct the pattern with your pattern maker, or if you do it yourself, then do it yourself. You have the pattern graded and marked, which is, you probably know what most of those things are. Grading is going from size to size. Marking is making it so they can actually cut it out. We actually did our own markers in the beginning because we didn't have a marking service. And then...
There's a service that does the marking.
Oh yeah, almost always you send it out, they grade it, and then they mark it. But the problem with that is that sometimes they're not committed to giving you the best yield on your fabric. They just want to make the marker as quickly as possible. So a lot of times you'll get a marker that's half a yard more than it really needs to be. So you have to rework it and put the pieces back in so that they're more interlocked. And that's part of the reason why we did it in the beginning, because we were short on our fabric. So we had to save some yardage that way. And then you send it out, either make it in-house or send it out to the contractor to be cut and sewn. Then it comes into your place. You do your quality control either in your factory or in your place. And you ship it to the stores and invoice them. And from then on, like I said, you have to sell it all over again because by that time it's 6 months after they've seen it to begin with. And you have to make the salespeople in the store fall in love with the clothes all over again, which means calling them up, making sure everything's okay, trying to get their customers in. A lot of times you do trunk shows, which is when you or your staff goes to a store and you bring your sample collection with you. They can order against order or sell what they have on order for the store already. And that's also a very good way of getting to know your customer by being out there on the road with the customer.
I hope you don't get returns, but if it happens...
Oh, we get returns.
You have to accept them?
Well, luckily we don't because we have a distribution center in New Jersey which is the size of like 10 Javits centers.
Really?
So it's a Scottos, it's huge, and they bounce merchandise. At UPS, if you don't want to accept merchandise, it's called bouncing it back, and if the store ships us merchandise back and we don't issue a return authorization for it ahead of time, it's automatically bounced and it goes back to the store, and then sometimes they refuse it and it just goes into UPS limbo forever.
Yes.
So, and then you have a dispute with them, and then they ultimately have to pay you because they accepted the merchandise, unless they go out of business, like Magnons.
Well, all that is stuff we really have not known about, and it's been fascinating. Do you have any more questions? If you don't, then I think we have to thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
What we need to know from somebody, and here you can use from your Now, I'm going to ask Meredith if you could change out for me. And can you go ahead? I did touch it. Thank you very much. Very good. Oh, I know. Just giving my best regards. And we'll send you the tape of this. Okay. Practice and thank you so much. Sure, I'll have to tell you about next week.
Mr. Clinton.